Hi, this is a demonstration of FortiWeb Cloud WAF-as-a-Service concentrating on the API protection side of it. Once logged in, we have a couple of applications that have already been added, and this is applications hosted in AWS. As you can see here, go into the application. So out of the box, the OWASP top 10 threats is enabled for known attacks, right? You can see here for signature-based detection of SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and so forth. So this is based on a negative security model, just detecting known threats, but you need positive security model or positive security protection these days with all the sophisticated attacks that's happening, and you don't want a lot of false positive with the negative security side of it. FortiWeb Cloud also has some positive security features built in, right, for machine learning via anomaly detection, and then for API protection as well. So today we're going to concentrate on API protection and using schema validations for OpenAPI, JSON, and XML. I'm going to show you a couple of examples of those. Then the API gateway. What's the API gateway used for? Well, it allows you to manage API users, verify API keys, control API access, and rate limits them. So it's basically a reverse proxy intercepting all the API calls, aggregating them, and then returning the appropriate results. And we'll look at some of the testing scenarios there to show you how FortiWeb Cloud blocks users if they don't have the valid keys and valid user access. And then the schema validation will validate, the parameters that you are expecting, right? If it's not the right parameters, it's going to block it. Only allow expected values, expected characters, and sequences to be allowed. The application we're testing today is this Swagger Pet Store utility/application that's available. You can load it up on your EC2 instance, and that's what we've done. And this is the URL that we're using, and fronted by the FortiWeb Cloud WAF-as-a-Service. So basic application. There's puts, posts, gets, and stuff for pet ID, order, as well as the store, the user, and so forth. So we're just going to use a subset of that functionality in today's demo. As you can see from the left-hand side here in the global settings, there's applications, templates, logs, and so forth. I'm not going to go through any of this or go through adding applications. It's pretty straightforward. There's other videos for that. Let's dive into what's being protected right now. So this is just our application. I wanted to show you some of the information that's available here on the main dashboard. As you can see, you can see number of block requests, number of total requests, and so forth. The OWASP 10 threats that's been blocked, threat level history throughout the last 24 hours, or you can see the 7 days as well. And then you can also see the threat level that's been hitting your application via the threat category. So right here, I've been testing with OpenAPI and API Gateway, and then you can see the throughput for the last hour. And then further down, you can see the incoming requests, and the green line shows all the allowed, and then the orange line is how many requests have been blocked. Today, let's look at API protection. So in here, there's 5 different categories, from OpenAPI to JSON to XML protection and API Gateway. We'll look at OpenAPI for now. Let's click on that. Here you can see that I've uploaded multiple OpenAPI files into FortiWeb Cloud WAF-as-a-Service. And each of these have different functions. So one's looking at pet ID in the path, the other ones are querying arrays and parameter limits and so forth. So let's quickly look at one of these. This is based on the Swagger Pet Store application that's being hosted in an EC2 instance. And this is just listing the path of the pet ID in the path and how many times. So if the query from a host does not match any of that, it'll error out. So let's take a look at one of those. Let me copy the URL that we want to get. So here in this command line, it's just easier. So I'm just going to cut and paste the curl call. So we're doing a get to our application, and we're passing an example instead of a integer. We're passing a string, so this should error out. So as you can see, the return's pretty quick. So right here it says this URL has been blocked and page cannot be displayed. So if we return to our application and go to the attack logs, it should show up. So here's the alert with a timestamp of 1646. Expand the alert. This is expecting a integer, and we're passing a string, so it'll error out, right? Let's look at another API call. This is for calling an array limit, so we're going to pass multiple parameters. So limit A, 1, limit equals 2, and so on, so forth. And then the last is just another passing a string and not an integer. So if we do that, again, the URL is being blocked, the request is being blocked, and the page cannot be displayed. Now let's take a look at the attack logs for the API call that we just issued that should have generated an alert. And as you can see here at 1655, this action was blocked, validation failure. So let's expand the alert and click for more view. And if in the details, you can see that the curl get was issued for these parameters. And we issued 4 parameters with 3 integer values, and the last one is a string value which trigger the alert. It should be all integer values for a valid request. Okay, now let's look at the JSON protection portion of it. Go to JSON. So let's create a JSON security rule. So this JSON limit has default values, and it is documented in the user guide. So if you look at the API protection, JSON protection, here's the limits. These are the default values that we're using, kind of best practices. So let's finish adding the JSON file. And click save, and that is all there is to it. The file we just used for the JSON validation is this file here. It's just called json.json, and it's just checking for a product type of ID integer, product name of a string, and then the price, which is a number. So this is what we're going to validate on the API call. Here's the curl command we're going to send, and we're sending ID as a string, name as a string, and price as a string as well. And ID should be an integer, and price should be a number. So this should again fail if we deploy it. And as you can see, your URL has been blocked, and we'll wait for a few minutes to look at the attacks logs. While that's happening, we can issue another command similar to the one we just did, but this one will have a different variable, username and password instead, and providing a couple more parameters into that. And again, that is also blocked, as you can see. So let's go back to the attack logs, and right here, 1836, this is the first alert from the initial query. And as you can see, we sent ID XYZ, name XYZ, price XYZ. Let's see if the other alert has come in. So here's the other alert that just popped up. And again, it's a JSON schema validation. We go there, and this is the parameters we passed. So again, that's due to not passing the right parameters, so this alert is generated. The last thing I want to show is the API gateway. So if we go to the API gateway page, I've already created some information, populated it, and I created an API user. There's not much to it. It's just, we take a look at the existing one. It's just a username, email. We're restricting the IP address to my laptop IP, and then populating the rest of the field. For the gateway rule itself, I've created two of them, and this one is, the front end is URL 123, so it's kind of rewriting this URL for the back end of v2/pets. When you type in the api.wdemolab.net/URL, it'll go to api.wdemolab.net/v2/pet. And then the API validation key, we're going to use a HTTP parameter to pass the key, the user, and then we're going to rate limit it to 1 per every 10 seconds. So, this is just a test environment, so if you wanted to have it higher than a production one, you can. So just to block out if there's some kind of botnet creation or attacking your application. I created another gateway rule just for the store portion of it, and I just used /store/store, so it's pretty basic. So let's go and issue some commands here, right? So if we just issue a plain get command, that's one of them. And then we're going to issue a different command. We're going to issue it with and then we're going to do it from another instance from a different IP address. This is a EC2 instance, which has a totally different IP address. And if we issue the same command from here, we should get an error. So this is the IP address I'm using, and I'm blocking an IP address or just limiting the IP address to my laptop. So from here, so those have been issued. Let's go to the attack logs, and it has not populated yet. Oh, here it is. So we can see that the API key, we didn't provide a API key properly. So we just did a get on URL 123, no API key, so that errored. The other one was, I think, the refer, which had an error. I had an API key, so that still errored. The other one was illegal source IP address. So here, user IP restriction. It came from this IP address, which is in my laptop. But issuing the get command here, that's all there is to the API gateway portion of it. You're just rewriting the URL. So I showed you all the protection, API protection, OpenAPI, JSON, and XML. And in reality, customers are only going to use one of them, right? Either OpenAPI, JSON, or XML, whichever one they're comfortable with, and then associate it to the gateway, and that they want to protect their application and make sure that they can validate users, validate API keys, and have some kind of authentication coverage. If you are interested in FortiWeb Cloud WAF-as-a-Service, you can go to the marketplace. For example, this is AWS Marketplace, and we do have a 14-day trial, so you can sign up for it via continue to subscribe from your AWS account and go through the process. Thanks.